As you may know, American Airlines operates two types of 767 aircraft, ER for extended range operations and domestic. There is little difference in their appearance, but the ER are different from domestic aircraft. They are specially equipped for extended range operations, that is, operating over a route where a suitable landing airport may be at least 2 hours away and possibly longer. Approval from the FAA for extended range operations, or EROPS, is contingent upon maintaining specific aircraft configurations and precise maintenance. Operations and record-keeping practice must be without discrepancy. These configurations and practices were developed in accordance with FAA Advisory Circular 120-42. Deviation from these standards can result in suspension of approval for American Airlines to fly these extended range routes and possibly fines. We use the 767ER on our flights to the European market. These aircraft must depart on time and they must operate reliably on their long flights over the hostile environment of the North Atlantic. The program you're about to see was produced to show you why it is so important for 767ER and all twin-engine extended-range aircraft to receive special attention.
To assure reliability, many ER aircraft systems are different from domestic 767 systems. These components may look the same physically, but they are different. The Illustrated Parts Catalog, or IPC, is the master reference for ER aircraft systems. It must be consulted for correct parts and aircraft defectivity and adhered to whenever you service or replace an ER critical component. Replacing an ER component with a domestic look-alike will downgrade the aircraft from international operation. For example, the overhead hydraulic control panel on the 767ER and 767 domestic look the same, and the connectors are the same. However, the ER electrical power supply for the engine-driven hydraulic pump switch is different. If the domestic panel is inadvertently installed in an ER aircraft and you have a primary electrical system power loss, the aircraft hydraulic system low-pressure warning light would be inoperative. Unless you duplicate this electrical system failure condition, there will be no flight deck indication that the wrong panel is installed. The RSPAM numbers of these panels are different. Check the IPC to make sure you have the correct one. Here are some of the other systems which are different. ER aircraft configuration requirements and maintenance practices are listed in the GMM and the Boeing Maintenance Manual. Personnel involved in servicing and maintaining the 767ER, our prime international aircraft, must be aware of these special practices. ER aircraft have a very conservative minimum equipment list due to the nature of their mission. Practically no MEL items are allowed for departure on an EROPS flight segment from the continental United States. If a flight complaint on the propulsion system or a primary system of an ER aircraft is written on 3 consecutive flight legs, that system must be positively corrected prior to release on an EROPS flight. There are also components on ER aircraft that, after being fixed, must be flight tested on non-ER flight legs before the aircraft can be released for ER flights. By discovering and fixing a problem at a kickoff city, such as San Diego or San Francisco, the aircraft can be flight tested and proven operational on a non-ER flight segment, a trip to Chicago, for example. If the problem is deferred, Chicago mechanics can fix the problem, but the European trip may be delayed or canceled due to the required flight test. As a result, our international passengers are subjected to a critical delay. So you can see, we must correct as many EROPS critical items as possible at cities where ER aircraft depart on non-ER flight legs. The specific systems which must be flight tested prior to ER release are listed in the GMM Section 11-01. Familiarize yourself with the items on this list. If you are unsure of the correct action to take when repairing an ER aircraft system, Always consult your supervisor and technical services personnel for guidance. This is especially important in the case of problems which could delay or prevent EROPS flight segments. With adequate notice, maintenance operations can make arrangements for a replacement aircraft in time. Early notification is critical. It's the way we must do business to eliminate delays and cancellations, and the resultant poor service image to our valued international customers. Another way we maintain our FAA approval for extended range operations is by our careful record keeping. Proper record keeping is just as important as effective maintenance actions. Our engineering operations specification requires that ER aircraft maintenance and performance records be maintained separately from other aircraft records. This allows closer monitoring of ER aircraft engine and operating systems performance. For example, records of the oil added to each engine and APU of every ER aircraft are checked daily by our engineers. These records help determine the condition of our fleet. By carefully recording the amount of oil you add to each ER aircraft engine and APU, you're helping to assure the reliability of those units as they take hundreds of passengers over the adverse conditions of the North Atlantic. As you perform the walk-around on an ER aircraft, be particularly observant. Try to anticipate problems which could occur downline. As you move around the aircraft, check for any signs of leaking fuel or hydraulic fluid, signs such as puddles or streaks of fluid. Be aware that they may be far removed from the actual point of leakage. As you walk around the engines, check for damage to the cowl or the blades. Are any fan blades damaged or missing? Be particularly aware of foreign object damage. If you find any damage, it must be repaired per the separate specifications for ER aircraft. If you add oil to an engine as part of the overwater service check prior to an EROPS flight leg, you must record the amount in pints in the logbook. Remember, this information is reviewed daily by Engine Tech Services in Tulsa. You must also calculate the oil consumption rate of each engine. Divide the number of pints you added by the flight time of the previous trip. The consumption rate must not exceed 1 pint per hour as indicated on the check card. The flight hours information is obtained from the DEX mode of FMR. Use the entry RGA aircraft number /Y1 and enter. If you have questions about the calculations, or if you discover a high oil consumption rate, contact your supervisor and Engine Tech Services for guidance. If the APU requires more than 2 pints of oil, notify Engine Tech Services for evaluation. As you continue the walk around, inspect the exhaust area. Is there any evidence of damage? Move to the landing gear and check for any broken or bent hoses or other damaged equipment. Are there signs of fluid leakage? Make sure the wheel assemblies are correct for international flight. Check the condition and ratings of each tire. The ER tire ratings are different from domestic tire ratings. As you move toward the tail of the aircraft, continue looking for fluid other than condensation leaking from the fuselage, especially around the APU and the tail cone. Remember, this aircraft must operate safely for 8.5 hours over an unforgiving environment. The loss of a critical system in the dark over the North Atlantic is not a situation we want to put our passengers and crew into. If you find any item on an ER aircraft inoperable or questionable, it is very important that you notify your supervisor and Fleet Operations Engineering immediately. They can answer your questions or help you solve a problem, and that can eliminate or reduce an international flight delay. By closely following prescribed ER maintenance procedures, paying careful attention to the details associated with ER aircraft, and by accurately completing the required documentation for ER aircraft, you're helping to assure the safety of our passengers and crew. And you're helping to assure that American Airlines will continue to be the #1 airline in on-time performance, especially on our overseas routes.